Hello and welcome to today's content of Rhaldor, since he has been announced, and I'll talk more specifically on the PvP aspects of Rhaldor. Also, since the information all on War of Divisions calc is there, but the builder is not correctly set up for the equipment, I'll be using the Japanese builder for description builds down below. So please bear with it for now until it gets updated. So for Rhaldor's main job takeaway, he is a pugilist, and the pugilist is the beginning of high damage strike type of damage. Monk is relevant, but not really strong enough compared to the pugilist job. So here we have Shura's Pummel, which does up to 170% damage, but also has the human killer if you use it. And currently, I believe almost all units, or at least 99% of units that are out, are all humans. So this is going to be extremely useful in almost all circumstances until later in the future when 2B and 9S come out from like the Near Automata event in the Japanese servers. We don't have that right now, so for now, Human Killer is going to be extremely well on basically everyone. As you can see from the range, it's only one range. However, it is like a small AoE, so it does help. We see Demon Purger, which is very high damage, as you see, 210%, which is large type damage. However, it can increase up to 285% if Rhaldor took damage 5 times. This is extremely strong if Rhaldor survives, so like a tank build or whatever, and a sustain build or like something that can draw out fights so he can get hit 5 times. Demon Purger will do insane amount of damage. As you can see, it is also only one single target, and it has no AoE, but it does have a range height of 2, so it's not bad. For his buff, he has the Pugilistic Mastery, which is very nice to have, which increases his strike attack damage by 40% at max for 3 turns for his allies, and his self defense penetration by 20%. Unfortunately, it's only for himself for the defense penetration, but it's still nice to have. Ironically, as much as strike attack 40% is very nice, kind of like atonement for Dwayne, there are not many good or relevant strike damage units currently. There are a few that can use a monk subjob and work with that, but not many with them. And lastly, his LB is Chasm Render, which is extremely very good. And I say this because not only is it the 200% damage, but it's one of his longest range abilities, and it lowers the strike resistance by 38%. That strike resistance is super relevant because no one has very good strike resistance, or even if they do, it is hard to mitigate strike type damage without properly... No. It's just hard to do it. If you actually stack strike resistance somehow with like Mithril Armor plus 5 or like Plat Armor plus 1, 2, or 3. I say this because a plus 5 Plat Armor realistically is not really possible right now. Or using an Esper, I think there's only very few Espers, especially UR ones, that have strike resistance. You're going far too out of your way to get strike resistance only to counter this one specific strike res imperil like ability. So basically, Rhaldor will do a lot of good damage because of his unique, like, not unique, but his strike type attacks. So for the subjob takeaways, Pugilist has the breathing technique, which is they can restore their own self HP by 30%, and this is like Breath of Life from Warrior Light. It is percent based, so it is a very potent heal if you have a lot of HP. Spirit Breaker is it works almost similarly like Demon Purger, but this is a little bit different, and I'll try to explain it because the translation is a little bit off. So the damage says it's 130%, but it increases the modifier by negative 40%, which is incorrect. This increases the modifier by positive 40% if the number of times you receive is 5. So if Rhaldor is hit 5 times, that modifier can go up to plus 40%, so it'd be 170%. However, the decrease attack part, where it decreases the attack of the enemy for 3 turns, it does increase the modifier by a negative 40%. So instead of decreasing their base attack by 79%, it will now be decreased by 119%. It's a bit hard to explain this, but since attack when you're decreasing it is off their base stat, you can decrease their base attack by more than 100% because then it'll bleed into the overall total attack. So decreasing it by 119 will essentially lower their base basically to 0 and then bleed a little bit more attack from their overall from like equipment, espers, etc. But this is only if the number of times you've received is for 5. This is a bit more niche, doesn't hit as hard, but it does significantly reduce any damage taken from physical attackers if the conditions are met. Anyways, moving on. For the Thief subjob that Rhaldor has, the only really relevant ones I would have to say is Snipe Dagger for its range and the confused chance. Steal Time is always very good in many significant circumstances, not only just PvP, but in general. And Shadowcast. While Rhaldor doesn't have very good evasion, Shadowcast can still force an opponent to like miss on him if they don't have good accuracy. He doesn't have like a very high tier evasion, but he still can get a decent amount due to Shadowcast. And most importantly, and the one I recommend in my opinion, is the Paladin subjob. So not only does he get Sentinel, so he can tank while he's moving in, he gets Taunting Blade, so he has hate generation if he wanted to, as well as Taunting Blade being his longest and farthest reaching ranged attack. Everything else does not come anywhere close to it. And most importantly, in my opinion, is Saintly Wall, which is it reduces any physical damage taken by 50% 3 times. This barrier is one of the strongest barriers because it's 50%. Even Agrius has it, like many Paladins have it. It is very effective against physical attackers. It is very strong for that reason. So here we are at the resistances and passives. First off, before we go in, Rhaldor has a base move of 3 and a base jump of 2. This is very important because it helps him with positioning in general when he needs to get his attacks off, but maybe like the tile is like 2 height instead of 1, or maybe like he needs a lot more move, but his jump allows him to basically move around the map a little bit more. So it's nice to know he is 3 move and 2 jump instead of 3 move and 1 jump or something like that. So first off, resistances to damage types. He is -15 to magic and -10% to water because he is a fire type. This means magical water types will do significant damage to him. Ironically, he has 0% strike resistance, meaning he can probably beat up himself if he was in a mirror match. He has 5% slash resistance, which is not bad. It's not a lot, but it's better than being negative and better than being 0%. He has 15% pierce resistance, which is good, and 20% missile resistance, which ironically is very, very strong against gunners and missile attackers in general. It's also funny because he doesn't have like super high mobility, so him getting like shot down by gunners has a less chance of actually happening very often. So his resistances to statuses: 50% to confusion, 50% to stop. This is very, very good because stop is very big. If you get stopped in a match, it can usually decide the outcome to the people who like made the stop happen. Confusion is also very important because there is one unit right now who is Agrius who has almost a guaranteed chance with her limit break to confuse units, but because he has a 50% innate base confusion resistance, he'll have a much better matchup against that. His 10% disable resistance is also very nice to have. It's better than nothing because he wouldn't have to fight on average like 25% chance. He has at least a 10% base resistance, so it helps him. It's favored towards him in terms of RNG. His master ability is HP 10% to fire allies and fire attack 15 to fire allies, so this is very nice. He also has the relevant defense penetration by 20% only for himself, so this is good because as more units in the game progresses, almost everyone's kind of mandatory to have some type of defense or spirit penetration. It's very good to have and nice to see. Moving on to his passives, the recommended passives I would say that he has, there's the flurry enhancements, which include it improves his counter, his reactive ability, but most importantly in my opinion would be the accuracy for 20. His warrior spirit is very good for the HP and attack up, and then Thief Lore is for the agility and the move. This move +1 is very good in my opinion because it would make his move 4 and then jump 2, meaning he can get around the map very nice. It will make him very mobile. The niche and flex, etc. The only reason why I put Holy Knight's protection here is because I feel like if I put too many on recommended, then everyone would only like be like, oh, why would you even bother putting like a niche or flex situation? But yeah, basically Holy Knight's protection, very nice to have. Also, it has the HP and defense, but like I said, niche or quote unquote flex, because while the HP and defense help very like in a lot of matchups, it does absolutely almost nothing to magic in general. If it was like spirit or something, or like magic resistance up or something, I would put it in recommended, but because it's that specifically, it's only really good against physical attackers. That and the acquired AP up, sorry to say, if you use the acquired AP up over any of the other passives, you're missing out a lot in terms of his kit, because he doesn't have a guaranteed hit ability. The accuracy helps. The HP and attack up is very good. D-Floor's movement as well as the agility is very nice. I feel like you miss out way too much if you use the acquired AP up in general. While it does help him with AP generations, I don't think it's a very good idea, at least in PvP. Moving on to reactive abilities, the flurry counter before it's upgraded is only at 121% and only has a 30% chance of proccing. It's not very high. If you look at the range, it's literally only a single tile away from Rhaldor, so the range is pretty horrible. There's not many users that will go right next to your unit and attack, unless it's in the auto attack and not an ability. If you look at the flurry counter, however, when it's upgraded, not only does it have a 50% chance of proccing, it's also at 165% damage, and it's a 2-hit ability, so it's very actually potent if it's upgraded, as well as if you can get it off if it procs and they're within the one tile in range for it to even work. Moving on, the Paladin's Guard, all Paladins have it. It's very nice to have. 20% chance of happening, however it reduces physical damage by 45%. It's very nice. Personally, and what I would recommend would, if you're not going to use the flurry counter because of the range, because it's just one tile, I would suggest the quick action. And something I would, if I had Rhaldor, I would use him specifically. I would use this reaction basically, very specific. So not only is it 20% of proccing from all damage types, it increases agility by 40% for a turn. So this is nice because Rhaldor, his problem is reach and range. If he can get to the enemy, that's great. He can start like wailing on them. However, getting to them in the first place is the problem. If they get poked down, if he gets poked down too much, in quick action does proc, he can at least get one attack off or get closer in range before he dies. Like, it helps significantly in terms of turn order. So that's how I see it in terms of his recommended reaction abilities. So moving on from the sub-jobs, let's talk about the strength and weaknesses of Rhaldor. So the strengths. He has access to an accuracy passive, which is very nice because evasion is always going to be relevant in some way or form, especially on the new guild map that we'll be discussing very shortly. There's going to be a lot of evasion teams, so having the accuracy passive will help him significantly in that matchup to help mitigate missing. He has the ability for strike res and peril on his LB. He's very bulky in HP and he has good defense. He has competitive speed, and I say this because he has 60 agility before his passive, so that's very, very nice. He has a base of 12 defense, so that's very good, but he has 0 spirit. He has mono fire buffs to help him with his damage and health. You can also pair other fire units to keep stacking that up. It's very nice to have. He's very hard to inflict confusion and stop on. He has very strong hitting physical damage due to not only his damage typing, but also because of his modifiers and the ability, like skill modifiers themselves, the multipliers. His only negative resistance is magical attack types. His slash, pierce, and missile are all positive, so that's very good in a general sense against physical attackers. His LB, like I said earlier, and at the top of the strengths, it has the potential to actually one-shot units due to damage, and because of the strike imperil, it's very hard to mitigate against. As I said before, anyone who's not a tank has a very hard time to surviving against this unless they somehow magically have good strike resistance, which not many units have, and almost no one builds strike resistance, so it's very, very hard to mitigate against strike attacks and in the imperil itself. He has innate defense penetration and he has a defense penetration buff. This allows him to get up to a possible 40%, which is very good. So defense stacked tanks or units can still take a good amount of damage from him. He has a base 3 move and 2 jump, like I said before, which is nice to have. But he can get up to 4 move and 2 jump with his Thief Lore passive. This gives him a lot of basically movement, which he kind of needs for getting his attacks out. He can be very physically tanky, as I said before, with the Paladin sub-job because of Saintly Wall and Sentinel. He has hate generation as well if he wanted to, so he is very flexible in terms of taking physical damage. So let's move on to his weaknesses. So he's weak to magic attack types innately and neutral to strike, so meaning he beats himself up in mirror matches as well as taking a lot of damage from magic users, such as like Sakura. So he has 0 spirit at base, meaning magic damage in general will do a lot more damage. So say he puts on like the Fenrir Vision card and the Fenrir Esper, he'll have a lot of magic attack resistance now. However, if he gets attacked by like a H. Ryu or Ramza or a Spellblade or a Rune Knight, since he only has 5% slash resistance there, he will take a lot of damage regardless, even if he had the Fenrir build. So it depends on what magic damage in general, but magic damage in general will do a lot of damage to him. Key point on the weaknesses is that he's weak to water units, even with his pierce resistance, which is 15%. To Glaciella, she can still do good damage to him. She also has access to Water Slash from her ninja ability, or monk abilities that she has can still do really good damage because he is at 0% strike. She can do good damage because of the element alone. Ildria also absolutely deletes Rhaldor. If he does not have magic attack type like resistances and you face an Ildria, do not expect him to survive past 1 or 2 attacks. Like, he will probably get instantly deleted. As we said before, one of his major weaknesses is that he has very short range on his attacks in general. He must move into the enemy to get his abilities out. As I said before, Taunting Blade is his only long range ability, but 1, it's slash, and 2, it eats up an insane amount of AP you might have wanted for maybe his LB instead. So if you don't run him with bells, you have to carefully choose what your Rhaldor wants to do. Most of his strong hit abilities are also 26 to 20 AP. As we saw before, Derman Purger was, I believe, 28 AP. Basically, he has to use a lot of AP to keep attacking. I say this only as a weakness because if the enemy has a tank that has a lot of defense and can survive more than 2 hits from Rhaldor, he needs a lot more AP to keep outputting, or else he's gonna get his 2 attacks out and then he's just gonna auto attack because he doesn't have too much like crazy insane AP generation, unless you put bells on him or something like that. As I said before, also his reaction ability for counter damage is a single tile. This means like the only realistic chances of him proccing that on the average will be from auto attacks, so from like outlasting fights basically. He also has no guaranteed hit abilities, meaning evasion teams will run him over. Even though he does have the accuracy passive, if you only have the accuracy passive and you don't try to bring up his accuracy by vision cards or Esper, a full built maxed out evasion team will still easily evade him. Also, while his resistances are good against a certain unit, such as like Agrius, he can still be charmed, he can be slowed by Kane, he can be immobilized as well, and he could be disabled without like proper mitigation. Because he can't use the Burgonet helmet, he can still be disabled even though it's not perfectly resisted. He can still have a chance of getting disabled. So also, I say this as a weakness, he uses cloth armor only, no like armor defensive types, so he has less variety to what he can use pretty much, and yeah. He's also unable to use Oldor's apron, so he cannot get any more defense penetration outside of his innate master ability as well as his buff. For his equipment types, the fist will have the Kaiser Knuckle coming out on his release, but we also have the Cat Claws from long ago if you farm that up. For the cloth, in general, the 3 major types in my opinion will be the Smart Robe, Platinum Robe, and the Fides something. I forgot the rest of its name, sorry. The Plat Robe obviously has a very good defense, but the Smart Robe and the Fides have very good spirit to help him survive against any magic attackers. For accessories, obviously Bells is very good. Derivative will prevent him from being slowed. Ayaka's TMR boots not only gives him agility, but also some spirit, which is nice. And his adamantite bracelet TMR itself is also very nice because it gives him accuracy as well as giving him move +1. It's very nice to have also because if you use the Thief Lore passive he has, he'll have 4 move. If he uses his TMR, he'll be at 5 move. If you use his accuracy passive, he gets the +20. If you use his TMR at the same time, he gets 30 on top of that for 3 turns. That's 50 accuracy and 5 move, which is very nice to have. Just be wary if he runs in too far too deep alone, he will get like stack up damage from the enemy team. So here is his role in terms of viability in the current meta, and I say current meta even though it's not today, of February 3rd, 2021, because this is when his release is, as well as the new guild battle map change that happens, which is a strike attack up map, as you can see from the picture. His role specifically, his number 1 in my opinion, will be DPS. He has very strong physical damage modifiers, as well as being a strike type attack is hard to mitigate against, especially people like Rain. You can see like JP players use Rhaldor on Reigns and literally hit max damage on him because negative 30% strike resistance, and then he LBs them, so it's negative 68%. Is kind of disgusting to how much damage increase that is. And he will also absolutely delete ice elements, so like Agrius, Lastwell, Gilgamesh, he will have no problem taking them down, easily take them down. You can also build him as a tank, and I say this not as a flex tank, but more as a bulky physical tank. So he has access to a possible 24 base defense if you use the Holy Knight passive I mentioned earlier. He also has access to the hate generation from Taunting Blade, as I told you, but most importantly it will be Saintly Wall because of the barrier. So not only does he have a lot of defense, he also has the Saintly Wall. He'll be very tanky to physical attackers. Just remember, if you do use him as a tank, watch out for magical type attackers. You can mitigate against them, but a full magic team will do significant damage to him. So for the guild battle map change, it is going to be strike attack up, and I'll be making another video on the guild map soon, probably release it tomorrow or something, but just a very short information on it is, this is the map we had a long time ago around the beginning of the game, closer like to 1 month, where double gunners had a very good time here because there's a lot of pit holes that you cannot jump across unless it's an ability or skill. So ranged here will do well, evasion will do well, and units who have very high mobility will do well here. I'll go more into detail into it into another video at a different time. So fighting as Rhaldor or against him. First off, we'll go to the left side of fighting as Rhaldor if you decide to pull him, and you do pull him. Rhaldor, like I said before, has very good bulkiness as a bruiser and a possible tank. Make sure if you are hitting any magic attack related compositions, run him with some type of magic resistance so he does not melt almost instantly. With his mono fire team master ability, pair him with other fire units to capitalize on the damage and health gain, such as like Xmas Mastery. They can both stack it, it'll be very nice to have. Or Luartha can be fitted into it so she gets the benefit and do a lot of missile damage. Or even Rain, if you want to make Rain even more tankier and do a little bit more damage. So yeah, like I said, Rhaldor has very short range, but he has very strong abilities as well. If you speed him up with like a haste or like a movement ability, just giving him more turns will help him get out his attacks. That's why top 6 that I could just recommend off the top of my head is Rain, Xmas Mastery, and Ludartha. They all are fire types and they all work well with Rhaldor due to not only their range but what their role is. Rain is a tank, magic tank, so if you're fighting magic type teams but you have Rhaldor in your comp and you don't want him to melt instantly, having Rain to mitigate against that works really well. Xmas Mastery also has the fire master ability. It's very nice to stack together. The reason why I put Ayaka here is because she has haste, she has protect and shell and full life and heals. It will help Rhaldor if he survives any attacks to keep like fighting, because she will be there to support him. I put H. Leela here as well because she also has protect and shell being more relevant in my opinion because magic attacks won't do as much damage, and she has full life. It's very nice to have her in general. Also the heals. Delita I put only because he's the only other quote-unquote relevant fire unit that people maybe use. Unfortunately, we need more fire units in my opinion. that are at least a UR, so it's like more fun to use them, but deleted would be the only other that I could think of off the top of my head. Also, as you see in the blue text, I'll have an example build for Rhaldor below. I'll have 2 different builds probably, one for generic and then one for the future mono light team, which is like Yuna, Sakura +1. I'll be explaining that a little bit in the description box later. Anyways, so now fighting against Rhaldor, forgive me for the text color choice, it was kind of bad, but anyways. Rhaldor is innately weak to magic type attacks and magical damage without mitigation. He will suffer great damage to those types of damage, as I explained before. So make sure if you're facing him, if he is not properly mitigating against it, bring those magic type attackers in and delete him. Water units do very well against Rhaldor, especially Ildria. Like I said, she can probably one-shot him if he's not mitigating against her. Like he will just melt instantly and die. But yeah. As I said before, even with his accuracy passive, he still does not have a guaranteed hit ability, so he can get overrun by evasion teams. Like, he has to still build up a lot of his accuracy in terms of Esper and Vision card setup, even his passive, to have a good chance of hitting evasion units that are at the top. If Rhaldor also tries too hard to raise his spirit and magic resistance, his physical bulkiness won't be as strong. And I say this as in, if they use the Fenrir Vision card, the Fenrir Esper, and then the Smart Robe, this means that he still has 12 of base defense, unless he uses the Holy Knight passive, then he'll be at 24. But yeah, that means he is foregoing his physical, like he's just relying on the base stats of physical, which are good, but if you build off it, they're much better. If you don't build off it, that means units still like Ruin Stern can still do a lot of damage to him. The 6 units that I could think off the top of my head that do well against them are here. Glaciella, Miranda, and Ildria all will do top damage to him in my opinion. Same with Xmas Ramada. I haven't really seen her almost at all in like the top arena and Guild Wars just because of like her kit. I think she's just kind of squishy. However, I do believe she could potentially one-shot Rhaldor if he does not have Saintly Wall Up or he does not have slash resistance build up either. Venera is here to represent evasion. Since she has basically one of the best evasions in the game, she can run laps around him, and because she has a defense down from Armor Cleaver, she will get through Rhaldor's defenses sooner or later. Niv Lu's here, as much as he has 20% missile resistance, if she kites him with the move down ability that she has, I think it's called Slow Arrow or something, she could prevent him from getting in range and getting to her, and because he has short range, Niv Lu can essentially kite him to a certain extent. So yeah, it's very important to consider like when you're fighting against Rhaldor how you want to defeat him. If you want to poke him down, you would use Niv Lu. If you want to use evasion team to just run around him, you would use Venera comps. Or if you have water types that you just want to delete him with, then you would use like one of the 4 I have posted here. There are others, but these are top 4 that I could think of. Once again, we arrived at the end of the video, and as always, if you liked my unit analysis of Rhaldor, please leave a like and or subscribe, and until the next video, have fun, and if you decide to pull for Rhaldor, good luck, and until next time, peace out.